everybody. Sorry for a little bit of delay there. Welcome to Big Bite Baits this afternoon. I'm the coach, of course, and I got Jordan with me. And Jordan's over here panicking because the Instagram wouldn't work for some reason, but we finally got it fired up. It may have to do with the fact we got all this awful weather. It seems like every time I talk to you anymore, it's storming outside. So Monday's become storm day, Jordan. Definitely, I think so. Before I start today's show, and we talked about doing a question and answer show, and we've already got, I think, quite a few questions, so that's good. I do want to show you a couple of new things we got to offer here at Big Bite that you might be interested in if you're a duck hunter. The new Blades hat. I know during the duck hunting season you might not fish, but you can still think about Big Bite Baits while you're hunting and wear a Blades hat. It's a mossy oak type hat. It's got the Blades pattern on it. Work real good for all you duck hunters. But anyway, we have that on the site now. I think it retails for $24.99. And then we have a new patch hat that we call the locator hat. And it's a really neat looking hat. It's got a new patch type logo on it with a fish. This also runs $24.99. So both those are new hats. They're on the Instagram. On the website, excuse me. And you can order them now. They're both up for sale. So check those out if you're interested. 2 new hats for you anyway. So all right, Jordan. Today's the big day, man. It's ask the coach the question. I know they've already been pouring in, so somebody's trying to pin me down. So let's go to it and see what we can come up with.
Sure. Well, I'll start off with an easy one for you. From Austin Parsons, what is your favorite big bite bait?
Well, I've only answered that question, Austin, now I think we shot our 100th show a couple of weeks ago, so I've probably said it at least 100 times, and that would be the Fighting Frog, no doubt. 4-inch model.
Okay, is there any certain colors that you like?
Yeah, I like tilapia green, tilapia and hematoma would be my two. If I had to go 2 colors, if I could only take 2 on the boat, that'd be the 2.
Okay, here's a live one from Andrew Laub.
All right, Andrew.
He's wondering how to rig a craw tube.
Rig a craw tube. Now, that's a good question. I like to rig my craw tube on a 4/0 tube hook. It's got a wide gap variety hook, big wide gap in it. And the nice thing is, I think it's a secret about the craw tube that a lot of people don't realize. You can add a rattle in that, and especially in muddy water conditions, make it even better. Definitely. So I usually rig that craw tube with that wide gap hook. I like, if I'm throwing it shot, I use like a 3/16 lead up to maybe a 1/4 ounce, and I put that rattle in. That rattle will make a big difference for you. That bait has that chamber in it. You can slide that rattle up in it, it'll stay right in it. So something to think about. That's a good bait, by the way. If you hadn't tried that craw tube, that's one of our best kept secrets, I think.
Absolutely. All right, here's a live one from Peyton Brzezowski wondering, what is your favorite topwater bait?
Well, I like several things on topwater. I think you have 2 types of presentations. I know that I'm going to base this off of where I fish most of the time. You're either going to use a frog or a buzz bait. And obviously, if I'm using a big bite product, I'll use the buzz toad. Obviously, I like a spro popping frog. And I also like a little hard bait called a Rico. They work very well. I fish like lots of rip wrap and stuff for that, and it seems to work real well. So that's probably the 3 hard topwater type baits I use most of the time. If I were to throw a 4th one in, then I just take the tour toad off of the buzz bait and just throw the toad by itself. That's another good way to use our toad on top, for sure.
Okay, a lot of good options.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That's fun too.
Yeah, for sure. That's the best way to get bit. Lunker Hunter Ryan is wondering, what's your favorite way to hook a trick stick?
I usually just Texas rig my trick stick where we fish out here. Now, I know lots of guys wacky rig it. Lots of guys Nico it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Personally, I prefer I use that trick stick mostly in the spring of the year, and or as a follow-up bait, like if I'm topwater fishing, and I just Texas rig it with a light lead. Now, that seems to be the best way for me. I know there's lots of guys that do a lot of different things with trick sticks that are probably more adept at fishing trick stick than I am, for sure.
All right. So Jay Beats is wondering, what color do you like to use when catching bass in ponds?
I don't think the color, to me, for a pond is any different than on a lake. Mm-hmm. I think it has to do with maybe the time of the year or the color of the water. I know that normally the darker the water, the darker the bait I'll use, maybe a black neon, a hematoma, black and blue, something like that. If you got your mid-range, water, use your green pumpkin variants of all varieties. and then as that water begins to clear up, as I said the other day, I like to go like a watermelon red or some kind of lighter presentation. I personally don't fish a lot of clear type baits, but now a lot of guys that fish clear water will fish like a smoked silver blue or a chick magnet or something like that. I hardly ever fish that. A watermelon red is probably as light as I go, but a lot of people do a lot of different things. But I think you kind of follow the color of the water. Definitely.
Okay. Makes sense. Here's a good question from August Riggs. They say, I love y'all's baits. I would like to know what's the best crawl that y'all have.
That's a good question. You know, I'm gonna promote our new bait and say the kamikaze crawl, okay? But I also think that when you talk about a crawl bait, that's basically what a fighting frog represents as a crawfish. So it'd be hard for me not to say anything about it. And then the swimming crawl is pretty good too. And that catches lots of fish as well. So I don't think you can go wrong with him. And then Joe over here is waving at me in the corner telling me, well, you forgot about the college crawl. So I just really don't think you can go wrong with any of them 4 baits I just called out. I know people that are catching them on that are friends of mine or guys I fish against or with or whatever. They're all catching them on those baits. So I think any of those crawl representations are pretty good.
Okay, great answer. Here's another good question from Troy Harper is wondering.
All right, Troy.
What would you throw on a brush pile?
Oh, he's trying to get into some of my secrets now. I normally throw several different things on a brush pile. I'll throw some type of moving bait first, okay? And then normally I'll come back with like a subtle plastic. I'll give you one tip on that. I like a big 5-inch fighting frog around brush. It seems to work really well. I like the bigger and more bulky one. That way you can get the bigger bite out of the pile. That's kind of how I would attack it. And as far as your moving baits, you can use a lot of different things, something that you have confidence in. I mean, the guys here in the spring were on our lakes got lots of brush piles in. They were catching them on like a jerk bait and a crank bait. I mean, I know guys that catch them all different kinds of ways over brush, but they use some type of moving bait.
Okay, that's good info. All right, so Jackson Eckroat is wondering, what is our best punching bait? And a couple of extra questions. What weight and what color?
Well, I think the weight has to do with the vegetation you're fishing, as how thick and how matted it is. I think that has to do a lot with your weight. I mean, you can go from an ounce all the way up to, say, 2 ounces or whatever, I think as far as the bait itself, if you want to use a flapping style bait, I kind of like our Yo Daddy because it's small and it's compact and it's designed to do that with. If you want a beaver style bait, then obviously you would use the Yo Mama. For sure. I think either one of them, depending on the type of style that you want to go with. That's what I kind of would think on that. And then, of course, what was his other part of his question? He asked about color.
What color would you think?
Well, I think, once again, I'd vary that on the water. I know if you go into Florida to flip and punch, you're going to use some kind of black and blue. I can tell you that. Up here on our lake, it seems like that when we flip and do that type of stuff, the green pumpkin variants work the best. So I think that has to do with the area you're in.
Okay, here's a question. From, let's see, Shoddy Clientele is wondering, what is your favorite jig trailer?
Oh, I like a fighting frog behind my jig. Now, I think we have some other baits that you can use that work pretty good as a jig trailer. Once again, we're repeating the same baits, but they're just the ones, I mean, that swimming crawl works real well behind the jig and your kamikaze crawl as well. But if you haven't tried that fighting frog behind it, don't let that 4-inch body scare you off. They'll bite it. I think that's real good. And you could downsize if you want to the 3-inch one if you felt uncomfortable with it. But that seems to work real good for me behind the jig. That's my go-to on a jig for sure.
Okay. Sammy Bowling, actually, and several other people have asked this same question.
Okay, good.
What are some good baits to throw in highly pressured ponds?
Wow. Well, I think, in listening to people talk about pressure and that type of thing, I think you got to kind of maybe downsize, maybe finesse sometime. Maybe go to like a fin twist head with some type of finesse worm on it. I really just couldn't see myself drop shotting in a pond, so I don't know if that would be something I would do or not. I think what I would do would be go maybe to a Ned rig. You could do that possibly. A 4-inch trick stick on a little Ned head, that might work real well. I just think I would size down the compactness of my bait.
Okay, good to know. Owen Brown is wondering if our crappie baits also catch bass.
Oh, hey, yeah, I can relate to that. You know, we go over and fish on the owner of this company has a really good dock on this lake. We go over at night, and there's no telling how many bass we catch on fat grubs every year. I know my daughter caught one over 8 pounds on a fat grub the other year. It was kind of a neat deal, you know. Yes, they will. I mean, I'm not going to go out and go bass fishing with a fat grub. But they will catch a bass from time to time. You know that, Jordan.
They do.
You know, been on the dock with us and watched it happen. It's kind of crazy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's one from Easton Callahan.
All right,
Let's see if you
Easton.
can answer this one. What's your favorite walleye bait? Do you
Well,
use
I don't
walleye
fish for walleye, so I'm gonna have to take the Fifth Amendment on that one and not answer it because there's no walleyes in South Alabama. And when I go north, I'm fishing for smallmouth bass, so I can't really answer that. I know that a lot of the guys that you know, I'm assuming we sell lots of suicide shads to walleye guys. I will tell you that, and I think that's one of the ways, you know, pulling a swim top bait, they catch them. But you're talking to a guy, I can't help you with that at all. That's like A to Z for me now.
Well,
definitely.
We'll have to phone a friend next time.
Oh, we'll need to phone a friend on that and get what they call it on that. What was it, the cab show where you call a friend?
Yep.
Definitely.
All right, Brady Inc. is wondering what your go-to baits are when the fish are just not biting.
You know, I have found, excuse me, I have found the last couple of years that just in not necessarily myself, but in talking to people in my area, a lot of them have gone to a drop shot when they're not getting bites and things are tough. Seems to be a way to maybe generate a bite. Another way to do it is put on top of that school with a jigging spoon and try to jig them. And that's several ways that, you know, there may be a little different that might work for you. That I, you know, just in talking with people, what people have expressed to me.
Okay, let me give you one more that several people have asked, and then I'll let you wrap it up.
Okay, good.
Several people are wondering what baits are working for you right now this time of year.
This time of year, the fish here where I fish at are still predominantly deep. We might do like a little shallow water stuff first thing in the morning, and then we're going to head offshore. Big finesse worm, crankbait, and then of course a big 10-inch worm. That seems to be what would be most of it. And if you begin to struggle, you pick up your drop shot, no doubt.
Okay, well that's it for this time.
Man, I tell you what, I'll finish up and just tell everybody it's been great. We appreciate all the people calling in with the questions. Tremendous. We appreciate it. And if we can help you here at Big Bite Bait anyway, feel free to call and we'll see you next week.